Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at the potential for some pretty significant rainfall across parts of England and Wales during the next 36 hours or so, which could actually bring the risk of some pretty significant flooding. To start off with though, we'll look at the Methodist warnings. Now I'm not going to go into too much detail with this because you can kind of check yourself, and I'll put the link in the description. But the kind of big thing flashing out with you is this amber rain warning across kind of parts of northeast England down into the Midlands and just about into the Welsh borders there, valid from 5 a.m. tomorrow till 9 p.m. tomorrow. Now, amber warnings of rain are pretty uncommon in this kind of area, especially since most of the rain in the UK is focused across high ground to the west. But if you read the description, you can see potentially 100 to 120 millimetres of rain may fall in this zone. That's from the Met Office, that's official, and that's a very high amount possible. Could affect parts of the UK, parts of England. But I don't think that just this amber region is at risk of seeing disruptive heavy rainfall. I actually think this yellow region at large, kind of a specific zone, which I'm going to look at shortly, is at risk of some pretty heavy rainfall. We'll start off with though by looking at the overall weather pattern to kind of get an idea of what's going on. This is the vorticity chart at 500 millibars. Quick reminder, this is a pressure level in the atmosphere, so the pressure at the surface is generally 1,000. But if you go higher up, the pressure decreases, and so at around 500 millibars of pressure, we're looking at kind of 6 kilometers. So it's generally about halfway through the atmosphere, gives you a good idea of the overall situation. And if you're not aware of vorticity, that's a fancy name for basically just saying spin, so kind of any sort of rotation like that. And that's generally good for showing where you've got your disturbances, and you can infer where the air is rising from looking at vorticity, which can give you a pretty good indication of rain, storms, that kind of thing. What you will notice though is we have this big low just to the south of us, and that's been sitting there for the last 4 days or so, which initially brought warm weather, then brought significant thunderstorms, on Friday, and then brought a combination of thunderstorms and heavy rain yesterday. In fact, some areas across the Midlands saw as much as 70 millimetres of rain. But notice all the orange shading. Of course, it's a low, so it's going to be spinning. But especially on the eastern side, we're looking at disturbances being pushed up, kind of hooked around, and then they're becoming fairly slow moving as they kind of stall across the south. And also notice, because these disturbances are not super defined, they're kind of just general small areas of vorticity or spin, that can mean they're very unpredictable, but also can bring quite high rain totals locally. Looking at what's happening now though, we have thunderstorms and showers kind of ongoing across parts of England and Wales. Actually, not so much Wales in this case, but you can see we've got this cluster across central southern areas, and that's generally drifting northeast. And this is going to lay the groundwork for some pretty significant kind of rainfall through the afternoon and into the evening, especially in this corridor here. Now, like I said, we did already get a lot of rainfall in this region, but what we're actually going to see through the kind of next 12-24 hours or so is a disturbance. Now, this is the vorticity at a slightly lower level, because it's kind of easier to pick out the more subtle features. You can see there's generally our low here. That's helping the development of these thunderstorms. The air is fairly unstable as well, and it's very saturated, so potentially high rain rates. But what we're likely to see is a kind of enhancement of that vorticity moving around from the continent during the early hours, the late hours of tonight and the early hours of tomorrow, as you can see here. So there's our disturbance. It's likely going to be a very subtle low, and it's going to drift from the continent into parts of the Midlands. And as it does that, we're going to see rain developing, vertical motion, and we're likely to see bands of heavy rain. And because of the instability, there's going to be convection mixed in there. So we're going to get general kind of moderate rain and then pockets of very heavy rain even. That's actually going to start today, because what can happen, and what we're expecting to happen during the course of the afternoon, if I show you this loop, is that these thunderstorms, they can kind of merge into lines, especially along convergence zones at the surface. So we've got a convergence zone here across the south, convergence zone here, actually that looks like more of a frontal zone actually. But you can see there's our thunderstorms. This is on the UKV model, by the way, so simulated radar. Don't take this too literally. But what I'm expecting to happen is we get thunderstorms developing along this convergence zone through kind of the Midlands down through London into the southeast. And you can actually already see that starting to take place here. So there are thunderstorms. You can see our new showers and storms are starting to form, and then we also have evidence of kind of banding here. And so this general zone is going to drift northwards. We're going to see storms develop. And then one kind of thing which can occur is when you have a subtle disturbance such as this one, it tends to kind of follow the path of pre-existing kind of spin vorticity or pre-existing lower pressure. And what we might see here is kind of latent heat release with all this convection, and that essentially gives a fairly clear path for the center of spin slightly higher up to follow. Now that might sound fairly complicated, but if I just show you this loop here, you'll probably see what I'm talking about. That's our convergence, so starting to develop by the evening, likely to see heavy showers and thunderstorms across the southeast there. And then notice that we get this kind of larger, slightly more moderate band of rain, but this is where our kind of center of vorticity will be, and it kind of just rotates around and follows the pre-existing path of storms, as you can see there. And what that means is that this region where the original convergence is ends up being the focus for further rounds. And then what the low eventually does is it pivots, kind of does a loop, and so you get very high accumulations of rain because it kind of just stalls around for so long. And especially where we've got so much moisture in the air, which you can see here on this loop, there's kind of all this green and blue colour showing a lot of moisture, and there's our disturbance just off screen starting to emerge through the afternoon. What that might look like in terms of the accumulated precipitation is very, very high totals. Now this is the same UKV run which I just showed here, and do not take this literally because it's one possible scenario, right? So it's hard to say exactly where the kind of embedded convection will be. We can give a rough idea, but we cannot say exactly, and so if this is showing 100 millimeters at your house, do not worry, it might not happen. There's a very good chance it won't happen. It's just indicating the risk of rain and the different scenarios. But what this does kind of indicate is this region here in red is seeing fairly large amounts, 40 millimeters plus, and where we do get the local kind of training of thunderstorms, that means the thunderstorms going one location, let me change the colour of this pen, going over the same location multiple times, and that embedded convection potentially as much as 100 millimeters, maybe a bit more than that. And you can really see what I was talking about with those kind of thunderstorms through the kind of day now. That's setting the kind of the groundwork for those same areas to get hit during early tomorrow morning when that band of rain comes through, which you can see is basically all of Monday morning there, and then kind of clears out slightly further west by the afternoon. But it's not always a good idea not to look at one model run. So if we look at another, this is the Icon high resolution, and that shows a similar thing. We get the initial path of storms during the evening across the southeast. This could drop maybe 40 millimeters, and then the main disturbance develops more kind of strengthens a little, and so ignore this cutoff. This is just because the domain of the model doesn't include areas further west. But you can see particularly of concern here, we're looking at 150, oh no, that's sorry, 130. We're looking at potentially 130 millimeters across parts of the Midlands. Like I said, do not take this too literally. You can really start to see the general kind of theme being picked up is a corridor from London into the Midlands, looking at heavy rain. If we look at some other models, now this model was actually from 6 o'clock, and that was slightly further north. Now this is definitely still on the table, and this is more in line with what the Metals have as their amber warning, but the trends have actually started to shift further south over the last couple of model cycles, as you can see here. If I show you, for example, this run, this is from, oh, I don't know if this is loaded. Oh yeah, there we go. This is the kind of 12 o'clock run. You can see similar things starting to show up. So there is uncertainty, that's for sure, but the bullseye is kind of definitely starting to appear, at least in my opinion. This area across the Midlands, potentially 100 millimeters, and then extending through London and into the southeast, where we could see some significant accumulations, maybe 30, 40, 50 millimeters with those training thunderstorms. And if you see what I mean about the shift south, for example, actually the UKV doesn't have it so much, but I mean, if I go to previous runs, I think there was a slightly bigger difference. Yeah, kind of. So, I mean, not so much, but you can see this disturbance on the UKV in the morning has now kind of moved further south, so potentially seeing South Midlands into London more at risk. And especially now that the models can actually pick up what's going on live, so this is all going to release kind of that latent heat and set a path for the storms, for the disturbance later to kind of follow, and the models are now picking up on that, and hence we're seeing the heightened risk through this region of the Midlands there. And potentially, I mean, the amber warning does already cover that area that we're looking at. This is the main area in my opinion. but potentially could see maybe extensions. I doubt into London. There's not enough confidence there, but maybe also cut from here, extended further south here. Anyway, in terms of impacts, we've already seen a lot of rain over these areas, especially these areas here, over the last 24, 36 hours or so. Like I said, as much as 70, 80 millimeters in places. With a further as much as 100 millimeters, we're likely to see significant river flooding, significant surface water flooding, especially with thunderstorms, disruption to kind of travel, transport, hopefully not, but the potential for damage to kind of homes and businesses as well. Anyway, that's about it, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and stay dry. Bye-bye.